Stability is everything in a Pro Tools session, and one thing that I'm always sort of got turned on, because I'm paranoid, is the option to basically auto-save your work, auto-backup your work. And I used to have this set to back up every 5 minutes, 5 to 10 minutes within a session, and to keep my recent backups. And it's got to be said, you know, in the past, I have run into problems where I have either messed the session up somehow, you know, ruined the MIDI performance, and I wanted to go back to an earlier place, and this has been incredibly useful. What I would say, if you're working with quite extensive sample libraries, it doesn't like it, and that's no fault of Pro Tools. It is the case of just we are demanding so much off of our computers that while it tries to estimate when would be a good time to save the session, you know, I tend to notice that if I've paused for sort of like 45-50 seconds and then suddenly I, you know, to grab a phone call or something, I'll notice it autosave. But it has got to be said that at times, you know, like anything, how's it going to properly predict it? I find that it sometimes chooses to save just as you happen to be loading in a new sample library, just as you happen to be opening up an instance of Kontakt, just as you've been happening to kind of drag over a new sound into your Kontakt player, just as you're opening up that kind of like that high-seed CPU intensive Slate Digital plugin, while it's kind of like running the risk of potentially like you know, losing some work, I honestly would turn this auto backup feature off, especially if you're working in MIDI sessions. I think if you are in a mix and you are purely using audio with some MIDI, and perhaps perhaps those libraries that you've already got in your session are kind of like you're not going to change them, you know, you're not looking to go in and add any other sounds, you're set, then you could perhaps turn it on. But I would say that during the composition process, it's just something that I've noticed over the past well, the last few years really. It's not been a recent thing. This new build of Pro Tools, it absolutely hands down to the guys. 2020 11.0 is solid. It really is solid, and it's solid on the latest version of OS X as well. You know, I can't fault it. I've had a really lovely experience in it the last few days. But that is something that I would add, guys. I would personally choose to turn off your autosave. Just make sure you're saving, and if you are concerned that you're going to muck up some MIDI, occasionally I do it. What happens with me is these sections over here, for instance, where I've got some blank parts there. Well, there's actually some information in those two with regards to modulation, which I've chosen to program for some reason in this particular session at the beginning, which just follows it the whole way through. Or this section might be a good example of this. Sometimes you might have some sort of like modulation. See, it's just starting just outside the MIDI note. If I suddenly go back to the session and feel a little bit sort of obsessive compulsive about my session and choose to cut this and get rid of that opening section, you might remove some MIDI information. In this instance it wouldn't matter, because in fact it would, because it's right now it's now starting basically below 1 in terms of the up to 127 in terms of velocity, so that note wouldn't start as loud as if I had that at the beginning. So if I actually bring that back in and undo all of that, in fact I'm talking rubbish because it wouldn't look. Just found a little issue in my program in there. But there's like an example of something that could be a thing. You may well find that you mess up there, or you delete something from your session, and that's where the autosave's been useful for me in the past, because I've just realised that all of a sudden my cello lines aren't sounding right, and I'm thinking, well, why? And instead of me arsing about reprogramming the MIDI, I'll choose to literally just go into the previous session in a backup, especially if that session was only 10-15 minutes ago. So just make sure that if you think you're getting into that situation, you save a new copy, a save as, and do an entire new copy basically of your session. And that would be my advice with regards to that. So yeah, just a quick video for you there, guys. But can't fault it, loving it, really enjoying it. So yeah, great success. Thank you, Avid, well done. See you next time, guys.